We're going to the cemetery. We're about to meet
That's
some
right.
person we met on the internet.
That's right. Mom and Dad, person I met on the internet, I'm going to meet up with them at a cemetery.
This is everything you told me not to do.
I'm doing it because I'm an adult and I do what I want.
I do what I want to, Papa.
You can't tell me nothing.
I'm gonna be a star. Where the fuck am I going? I'm losing my voice.
Oh, I better go back to the maps.
Welcome to Remnants. I'm Emily.
And I'm Kayla.
And this is finally our second episode of season 3.
Yes, our investigation episode.
The Missouri State Penitentiary.
Yes, so our first episode, if you listen, was all about the history.
Mm-hmm. And this is going to be about the paranormal. Yeah. And we're bringing back something we kind of did in season 1, where I'm going to do paranormal theories and such like that. That's not a thing people say, but we're going to make it. I don't know if I mentioned this in like our first episode, but I have had a cough since frickin' May. So if I at some point just start sounding like an old man or lose my ability to speak, it's because my cough has returned. I literally had to get a tuberculosis test. Like, I didn't think people still got tuberculosis, but apparently
Emily's had a year.
I've had a year. I thought I was going to be in my Doc Holliday era, but I'm okay now. Well, I'm not okay, but I don't have tuberculosis. You know, just
have a chronic cough.
Just sniffing that Flonase. Well, that Flonase life. Like, literally, as we're talking, I breathe in, I'm wheezing. I'm like,
great hot girl summer.
Hot girl summer. I've literally had a cough all summer. Hot girl summer.
Yeah.
So, Kayla, anything happening with you?
Not really. I'm just nothing in particular.
You're not coughing? You haven't touched any dead people?
Not recently.
No nuns?
No nuns. No nuns in my life.
No more zombie nuns now?
No.
Would you ever start traveling to pet a dead nun?
No.
Like, if there was one, like...
I don't think so.
Like, if one
Unless it was in some, like, really cool place that I wanted to go to.
So you would find a way to make that, like, I have to go on this trip because I have to touch this old lady. I guess she doesn't have to be old, I just assume.
Yeah.
I guess that was nunnest of me.
Yeah. How dare you?
I got a new cat.
You did, and she's so cute.
Yeah. We were like, recording's already difficult at Emily's house. What do we need? Another cat.
Let's make it more difficult.
Yeah.
She actually quieted down.
I don't know where Rogue is. Is she still in here?
Yeah, she's being good too.
Okay,
so we better go quick.
We must talk before they remember we're doing this. Yeah. I can't have Percy in here because she chases the cursor on my screen, and it's doesn't
adorable.
Yeah, it doesn't work very well though for like anything on the computer. But
yeah.
So I guess we should start with like the investigation setup we had at MSP was like one of the coolest things ever.
Yes, it was. Definitely the coolest thing we've done so far.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we had a contact that we made on Instagram with Michael P. Lear, and he has his own podcast, Show Me Murder, and it's, true crime podcast, so we love it, and we've kind of been chatting off and on for a while online, and he also does tours in MSP, so he was gracious enough to work with us to get us a hella cool opportunity to investigate basically solo with him, and it was...
So yeah, it was just the three of us.
Yeah.
There, and this, up until this point, I think Waverly was the biggest place we had investigated, but MSP now takes the cake. It's massive.
It was majorly
and to be there
overwhelming.
With just the three of us was it was incredible.
Yeah, we pulled up and we're like, so this is what we're doing, huh? This is where we're gonna be?
Yeah.
Because at Waverly, obviously it's huge, but it's one complex, and we went with, 40 people.
You're right.
This one, how many buildings? 4 active, or how
There's
many?
4, left that you can still enter. I think there was, 2 other buildings that looked like that are still standing, but...
Yeah, they're not in idiots wandering in the dark condition.
Yes. So, we went into 4 buildings.
Yeah, it was something.
It was amazing, so...
it was definitely one of those experiences we talked about afterwards. We're like, oh my God, we didn't spend enough time in any one place because there's just like, we felt like we had to keep moving so we could see everything and, you know, try to talk to every dead person.
Right.
I didn't want to feel anybody to feel left out.
Right. So yeah, if we go back, we would probably like target an area or two and just like stay there the whole night. Cause part of, I mean, we still had some stuff happen, but yeah, we were just like every 20 to 30 minutes, we were like, okay, we gotta go somewhere else because this place is so massive. Like if we want to see it all. I mean, we were even there from like 9 p.m. till a little after 5.
Yeah. Yeah. We were dragging ass hard.
Yeah. We were, it got real tiring towards the end there because that was another thing. This place was so huge. Like we did not like sit down at all. Like when we've done other investigations, Waverly and Beatty, like we're usually taking breaks and kind of sitting for a while. This was pretty much nonstop the entire night because we just had so much to investigate. And also the like base room was kind of far. So we basically just carried all of our stuff with us and we only went back to that base room a couple of times.
Yeah.
So, like, I didn't even get to eat, like, my snacks or drink my drink.
Every time we
went back, but I said we only went back, like, a couple times, but it was like, whoa, get all the cookies.
But I also, like, felt like half the time I was the only one snacking, and I'd look, and Kayla was just like, Emily, we must go.
I know, I was like, stop eating,
I'm sorry, I'm hungry.
But anyway.
I looked up, and you were just like, We've joked that investigation was us being peak like old married couple because there's so many recordings of one of us saying something sassy. Usually it's Kayla and I'm just existing. But I was also, something was wrong with me that investigation. I wore the loudest shoes possible, which always happens.
Yeah.
But these shoes
were particularly loud. She couldn't like even shift without them.
Yeah, if my feet like slid in them, I farted. It was my shoes. And then also, I was just stomping everywhere.
Yes.
I didn't know it. Stomping, there were several occasions where I was having a fight with a tripod, and I had no idea that was also loud, and Kayla's just over there, God, that's loud.
Yeah, there's one recording where, Emily's, like, messing with the tripod straight up for, like, 5 minutes. It was, like, it got loose, and so it kept falling, and she was trying to figure it out in the dark, and I had just go into the recorder. That's just Emily being loud.
Yeah, so I had no concept of time or self-awareness of me making noise pretty much at any point. And Kayla's just like, I'm going to push her off the scaffolding. I want Emily out. So that happened.
Yeah, we had a fun dynamic that night.
We did. And I think more recently we've had people like joke and been like, so how long have you two been married? Because God, where was it? We were in Arkansas.
Yeah, we were in Hot Springs. That was probably the funniest.
Because we didn't even know. We like went to some German restaurant, and I think we ordered the same thing, but
we shared because we were broke, but also so we're like, well, let's share a meal. And it was like a 2 sausage platter. So like I picked a sausage and Emily picked a sausage.
And we tried each other's sausage. That sounds so weird.
It does.
We shared our sausages.
Yes.
And I liked your sausage better than mine. And I was like, hey, Kayla, can I have this one? She's like, well, I want you to know that this is the one, because I didn't like mine. She's like, well, this is the one you ordered, so I just want you to remember that. And we weren't, like, paying attention to anybody else at the table, and someone across from me was like, so how long have you two been married? I'm like, what do you mean? Like, this is the one you picked, and I'm going to eat it, but you
just
picked it.
So you are aware.
Yeah, just so you're aware. I picked the good sausage, and you're stealing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were sharing sausages in public.
Yes, we were.
All downhill from there, I guess.
Yeah. Actually, I can't wait to talk about that Arkansas trip.
I know.
Which will be an episode.
We've had some strange experiences this summer.
I don't know at what point Emily's going to stop coming on trips with me, but...
Usually when you bring me with you to them, they don't go quite as planned.
Yeah, there's always something
a bad thing.
No, it's not bad. It's just stuff happens.
Yeah, we just need to maybe we need to accept that we need to be responsible for our trips.
Yeah,
because we're picky bitches.
We are. Yes.
Well, we're picky bitches, but then we're okay sharing beds. So I don't know how picky we really are. We just want there to not be wasps. I can't say that word, wasps. In that room.
Oh, God.
But I guess we'll get into that later.
We'll get into that in the Arkansas episode.
We have a lot to talk about.
I know, because it's like, yeah, we've missed talking to people we can't see.
Exactly. Like, I love talking.
It's
we love
listener,
talking.
yeah, it's listeners that can't interrupt us.
That's my favorite. I love talking to people that can't respond.
Yes.
And I like to not see them, and I like to not hear them, which is why we love ghost hunting so much.
Yeah.
Although we did actually hear some people.
We did.
Time, so.
We were you had brought up that we finally had an investigation where we heard stuff in person.
Yeah, like I will say that quantity-wise, I feel like we didn't get as much as we normally feel like we do, but we heard a lot of what we got live, which is interesting. So in some senses, it's one of the more noisy places we've been to, in that we heard these things, and not only did we hear them with our ears, but we did actually get recordings of what we heard as well. So that's pretty compelling.
It is.
So,
and I think kind of what we had said earlier, I mean, I think a big reason we maybe didn't capture a lot at MSP, or at least in volume to other places, is we didn't stay anywhere very long, because the place is so massive. Like, we were just, it's 4 buildings, and 3 of those buildings have like 4 floors.
Yeah.
And a basement, and
like, by the time we got to some of them, the idea of going all the way up some of those cells was kind of horrific. Yeah. Like, we were sore and kind of spooked, and just didn't feel like there was a high likelihood we would be able to climb multiple levels of rickety stairs without falling to our dooms.
Right, especially the last one we were in, the railing was clearly not up to modern codes. It was not very high, and I was like, man, I feel like I could pass out.
Yeah.
Because I'm so tired, and I'd just go over that railing, and, well, that would, then you could ghost hunt me.
Yeah, and I am not scared of heights, but I definitely get scared of heights in the dark. For sure.
Yeah.
And then in the dark, when I know I'm looking for ghosts, and when all these places be like, these ghosts like to push people. And I'm like, so, let me get this clear. See, there's that. My tuberculosis.
Let me go back to Waverly.
I know, I'm a trigger.
You're a trigger.
Like, oh my god, she's sick too.
That's what they sound like. Just like me.
She sounds like she needs that thing in her lungs.
Yeah.
Balloon. Anyways. What was I saying? Yeah, when we were walking up through the railing, and I was just seeing all the dark pits into the cells with the open doors, and just like the railing that stops hip length.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, if there is a ghost here and it just decides to just lightly tap me, I'm going down. And I just, I didn't want to go out that way.
No, that's fair.
So,
I guess we can kind of start to talk. If you
listen
listen to
talking, to be clear,
start talking about
we were definitely talking. We've got about 15 minutes of talking already.
Oh my god. Well, see, look how rusty I am. I don't even know what I'm saying. Anyways, if you listen to our first episode with Michael, then you heard all of the history. But I'm going to kind of just like recap a couple things in case you're like, I don't want to listen to the history. But I'm going to make you listen to the history.
Not only are you going to listen to a full episode, you're going to listen to the recap. And you better not skip it. We're not giving you a timestamp.
No.
So, if I have to listen to it twice, so do you.
So the Missouri State Penitentiary, it's located on the banks of the Missouri River in Jefferson City, Missouri, which is our state capital. Woo!
Woo!
And it's still owned by the state of Missouri. And it was once known as the bloodiest 47 acres in America by Time magazine.
You know, I aspire to have such a title someday.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to be the bloodiest 47 acres, but you know.
Yeah.
We'll workshop it.
Yeah, I don't know about that either, but I bought a t-shirt that says that. I don't know where I'm going to wear this t-shirt.
I got a hat.
You did get a hat.
I like my hat.
But mine says bloodiest 47 acres.
Well, you can wear that anywhere. You don't need an occasion for that.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
I should have worn it today.
I should have worn it to the Children's Museum yesterday.
You should have. And we're recording and you're wearing a California shirt.
I sure am.
Get on the whatever. I don't know what you're getting on, but get on it.
Get on that train.
Get on that 47 acres.
MSP operated for 168 years from 1836 to 2004, which kind of wasn't that long,
that's
long
always
ago. I mean, I guess it's been 20 years, but still.
Yeah, which
pretty
like,
recent.
An interesting not off track, but like when we were in the cells, you see a lot of like tagging from the former inmates, and like it's hard to remember that it was open
and then
20 years ago, because like it looks so old, but then you see tagging and it's like, this seems like something somebody I went to high school would have written. And they're like, oh shit, because it was.
Yeah, it's like there's some like 90s or early 2000s
there's like
slang.
And then you see the like the style writing that kind of looks like that 90s S or something. And it's like gangsta. And I'm like, oh shit, this is like, well, I won't say modern. I guess it's not modern anymore, but it's modern to us as we get older.
Yeah.
It's not what you expect when you walk up there, because you just assume it's like, it's all old-timey gangsters. That's not what they sound like. But, you know.
Right. But, yeah, no, there was still... I mean, plenty of people who are still alive today serve time there.
Yeah,
you know?
like, you can literally look it up on YouTube, and you can listen to accounts of people that stayed at the Missouri State Penitentiary. It makes it sound like an Airbnb. But I mean,
it's crazy though. Like, so it was still used pretty recent, but it's so old. I mean, the prison was 100 years old when Alcatraz started taking inmates. Like, it's
crazy.
I mean, it's just got so much history, and it was also the oldest continually operating prison west of the Mississippi, until it closed. And there have been over 2,000 deaths on the property from inmates, being killed by other inmates or in riots, and guards were killed too. And so there's just, like, I guess probably any prison, there's lots of death.
I mean, I guess they're not usually the most pleasant of places.
Nope. And they held some pretty infamous criminals, like Pretty Boy Floyd, if you're into mafia stuff.
He wasn't that pretty.
No, yeah, I don't know why he got that nickname.
I look at the picture, I'm like...
Yeah, who are you running with if you were the prettiest one?
Yeah, like if we had ugly boy Roger and mildly attractive boy John, and then pretty boy is just, it must have been a really low bar.
Right.
No
or
offense.
There's something else, like maybe he like was very high maintenance or something, like maybe they gave him
like
that
maybe
nickname.
he actually took showers.
Yeah, maybe that was his nickname. Let's dig into that.
Yeah, that's our next episode, is like, why was he pretty?
James Earl Ray was also there, and he escaped, and then a year later went on to murder Martin Luther King Jr., so that's shitty.
Understatement, but there you go. It's shitty.
That's real not cool.
Not cool, man.
But yeah, there's some other... I mean, no one too crazy famous, but definitely, some infamous people there.
Yeah, and then there are people, like, we hadn't heard about. I'm not going to be able to remember their names now, but, like... When we were on death row, Mike kind of went through some of the people, and there were some really, really gnarly crimes that aren't like true crime legends, I'll say, for lack of a better term. But like there were some really dark criminals that were in
like
there.
Charles Hatcher. We talked about him in one of our episodes in season 1.
Yeah,
he was
he's
a serial
real
killer,
bad, and he
child killer.
Burdella was
there.
He wasn't in any of the cell blocks we were in, to my knowledge. I think he was in one that was...
He was in one of those buildings that you can't enter anymore.
Yeah, Burdella. And then there was another criminal that was on death row that had a really dark story. He was I think he was the last person executed at MSP, I think. I can't remember his name, but he had a really... Like, there were a lot of things that Mike told us about that I haven't quite been able to scrub from my brain, but I think there's a reason why one of the cell blocks in particular was more disturbing than the others.
Yes, and we'll get to that. Yeah. I mean, we haven't investigated a prison before, but like this is like a prison where the bad people go. This wasn't like white collar crime prison.
No, this is like when you picture a prison, this is what you picture.
Yeah. An interesting note, too, I just thought of, like, because it was along the Missouri River, do you think that has anything to do with the activity there, too? Because, we've talked about before, like, water and river, and, the Missouri River is a very, like, powerful river, so, like, I don't know if that has...
several of the buildings were made of limestone.
Yep.
So...
Yeah, I don't know, if going into paranormal theories, like, if that kind of has anything...
I mean, it could. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think you have to go too far to even bring water into it, because so many of our buildings... technically do have water running through them, so I don't know, like, does it even need to be by a river at that point? Like, probably we just have, I mean, hell, we're made out of water too. What are cucumbers? Cucumbers and watermelon are haunted. I'm sorry. I've had so much caffeine.
We're like, do we need more caffeine before we record?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do.
And then we're walking to Starbucks, and I'm like, I was like, shit, are you really caffeine?
I know, you were like, I already ordered it, though.
And now I'm like, cucumbers are ghosts. I swear, it's just coffee. It's nothing else. Get back to the history.
So like we said, there's 4 buildings left that you can explore. And so the first one is, or at least the first one we went into, it's Housing Unit 1, is what they call it. And it's often referred to as like the women's prison, but it was most recently where they did AGSEG, which is administrative segregation. Then there's Housing Unit 3, which I think is also maybe O-Hall. I don't know. There's so many names. Like,
And there's no way I'm going to keep track of it without a visual.
right. So this is the bad one, Housing Unit 3, which is where death row is, and also the solitary confinement punishment cells in that
where
area.
I felt the most creeped out.
Is known as 3D. Yeah, and that's where the majority of our evidence comes from, too. And that building was built between 1914 and 1918. Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty damn old.
And there's one very specific, like, I remember Mike had told us that there was an isolation cell in the hall where we'd caught a lot of evidence, where 2 prisoners, I think, had been kept, or 3, and 2 prisoners straight up murdered and did something very, very bad to the then deceased individual's body.
Yeah.
And I've not been able to...
Stop thinking about that.
Yeah. So it's interesting to know that there were extra horrifying things that happened there, and we caught quite a lot.
Yep. There's also then Housing Unit 4, which I think has also been known as A Hall, and that is the oldest building left standing. It was built in 1868, and this has the area known as the dungeons, and so it's in the basement, and there's no windows, no light, and that's where they would, I mean, they were punishment cells, so that's where they would put people. And Firebug Johnson was someone who was down there for 17 years, and he went blind because of the just constant darkness.
And isn't that where they had some of the cells that were actually, like, buried, and they excavated some of them, and there's some things that are still probably buried down there that he said they haven't quite gotten to yet, which is terrifying to think. It's just like, what else is here that we just don't know yet?
Right. Yeah, because this prison was just like kind of built and built and built on itself, and
very much like my high school was. You start at the ground floor and they build on top of it. And it's like a freaking labyrinth. You're like, oh, what's under the band room? I don't know. Oh, it's the gym room with staff.
Right. That was like, thinking of that though, like we were so lucky to explore this place with Michael, because he has been doing tours there for years, and so he knows his way around. So we didn't have to
we were very lucky.
We didn't have to be like, wait, where is this? Or where, he knew his way.
Shit.
No, we didn't. We just showed up.
What's this?
Yeah.
I'm like, that's the porta potty.
And it was so awesome, like, because we could just ask him anything. It was like, well, what's this? There was at one point I asked, like, what these, like trays were under the windows, and he was like, oh, they use that kind of to try to help disperse the air, and, I don't know, just random things like that.
He literally knew more than should probably be humanly possible, but he's like a walking expert on the prison, so we were extremely lucky.
It was so cool. And then the last building we explored, which is pretty crazy, was the gas chamber.
Not only did we explore the gas chamber, the gas chamber, but we sat in the chairs where people were executed.
Yeah, I don't think Emily didn't want to, and I was like, sit down!
I was like, fine! Like, Destination Fear did it.
I did.
Are you a chicken, Emily? I'm like, yeah. I don't want, people probably shit all over, there's a blood all over, I don't want to sit on, you're like, shit on it!
Sit down!
I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get...
She did not sit down for very long.
I didn't, because it felt wrong. It was
weird. 40 inmates were executed in the gas chamber, 39 men, 1 woman, and I guess probably the most famous, especially in regional history, was Bonnie Hetty and Carl Hall were executed together there, and they were the couple that kidnapped the 6-year-old boy Robert Cosgrove Greenlease Jr. on September 28th, 1953, and the demanded ransom was the largest in American history at the time, but they had actually already killed the little boy before.
They needed more than a gas chamber execution.
Yeah, they're just pure evil, so...
I think I forgot about that when we were there. Mm-hmm. That's probably one I didn't want to focus on.
I know, it's kind of hard because it's just pretty much a lot of people that were there for very gruesome reasons, and so it's kind of hard to really, like...
It gets harder for me, especially when it involves a kid, which is why I hated Hatcher so much.
Yeah.
But, like, I remember that story now that you've mentioned it being so bad.
Yeah, and the gas chamber is kind of interesting because it's like, it's probably was I don't know, it's a bit of a walk because it's kind of removed from the main buildings.
Which is a very spooky walk to do at night.
It really is.
And there were literally things in the trees.
There were.
I was like casting my flashlight out, and like you'd get, you know, when there's the reflection of light in things' eyes, and they were like sets of eyes just in the trees. I'm like, what's there? What could it be? Do I want to know?
I mean, hopefully it's just like a little fox or something.
I mean, there was definitely an owl somewhere.
We heard hoot.
But there were things in the mic. Like, actually, there have been bear sightings. I'm like, great.
Thank you.
That's what I
Very
need.
helpful, Mr. Encyclopedia.
Let us know about the bears once we're safely inside.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess we can now start. I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add before we just start talking about our investigation?
I mean, yeah.
What?
Don't forget my section. Now I
Oh
get
my
to talk
God.
about things. Kayla,
I'm
you're like,
sorry.
I'm the star of this show. I just talk about the history and then we...
I forgot about our paranormal theory. Well, it's because I didn't do the research.
Yeah, so it's irrelevant to you. Yeah, but we're going to talk about, because even with how long he's been there, Mike doesn't have a ton of like solid stories of paranormal, like things that have happened to him since he's been working at MSP, but he did mention that he has stories about a mimic, and like a lot of the other guides have encountered a mimic spirit, you know. And this happens a lot at places with tours, because we encountered this at McIntyre as well, where the owner, Stephanie, has a mimic there. And it's an interesting thing, because it's usually like tour guides or other tour guides or tour groups will encounter a double of one of the tour guides. Or like they'll hear their voice or they'll see them somewhere. And it's interesting that it seems to happen at places like this that have reoccurring people visiting them. And so that's something that they talk about at MSP in particular. So I wanted to know more about them, because obviously we hear about them a lot. The more popular term that we know now is doppelganger, which is actually like originated from a German phrase, but we'll kind of go into the history a little bit of that. But like I said, there are tons of stories about mimics throughout history. Like it goes beyond even the German, which I didn't know. So it's kind of makes it more compelling in my opinion. Modern stories, you can see them all over the internet, not just internet.
On the line.
On the web. On the great wide web. Particularly on the Reddits. You can see stories of people talking about having mimics in their home. Like somebody will be in their room and they'll hear the voice of like their roommate or their mom. And they're like calling their name or trying to get them to go somewhere. And then they go and they realize that that person's not even home. And yeah, obviously that's spooky.
Don't like that.
And that's why a lot of people believe that a mimic might actually be a demon. And like the mimicry is a way to kind of begin the process of like getting somebody afraid. Like, yes, there's that level of like, yes, it's a lure because you're comfortable. Like, oh, it's just my mom. But then you realize like, she's not here. And then the more and more happens, the more frightening it gets. And then that's where they get the fear that they feed off of, if you were to believe it's a demon. But that's kind of just, it just depends, I guess, on your perspective of paranormal. Because a lot of people think anything paranormal is demonic.
Right.
So, sure, maybe it is a demon, but that's not.
Not everything's, at least in our, we don't believe everything's a demon.
Yeah. So, there are different types of mimics throughout the globe. Wow. That coffee. There are different types of mimics throughout the globe. And it actually began sooner than the doppelganger. The first mention of it, and I had no idea of this, it comes from an English-speaking term, and the word they use for it is fetch. You know, like, that's so fetch.
I love it.
But a fetch is an apparition of a person that is still living. And the concept of a fetch goes as far back as the 1583 English translation of the Aeneid. It's kind of like a spirit that's, I think the term fetch was almost used as like, it's fetching the recollection of this person. It's like a fetched memory almost. Yeah. So it's a complete duplication, as much as it can be. And it actually appeared in the first edition of the Oxford English Dictionary.
Ooh.
So
it's an old word.
It's old, and it's an old concept. It's even older than that, and we'll get into that, but the doppelganger then appeared, and it's basically the same thing as the fetch. Both of them are believed to be a bad omen, where if you see your doppelganger or your fetch, it's usually an omen of death. Usually yours, but not necessarily. It doesn't have to be. The Germanic take on this type of apparition first appeared in 1796 in a writing by John Paul that I have no idea how to pronounce. It's, I'm going to guess, and it's going to be wrong.
Is it German?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's like Seibenkost.
Sure.
Seibenkost.
Say it really fast.
No idea. But it probably sounds angry. Translated, the doppelganger translated doppelganger. Oh my god. Doppelganger.
Watch out for that gator!
That's the Floridian version, the doppelganger. It looks just like you, but it's an alligator. So translated, doppelganger means double walker. Like the fetch, it refers to an exact copy of someone living, and it pretends death. The doppelganger is often also referred to as an evil twin or a twin stranger. Now, the twin stranger is actually more of a modern take on it, and it's more popularized online with the kind of doppelganger. The doppelganger fad trend, it actually is more interesting modernly. Mm-hmm. You can tell I haven't done this in a while, because there's a level of verification we can do now. So there are actually websites where people will be like, I saw somebody who looks just like me, and they can take a picture. Or I saw someone who looks just like you, take a picture. And then you can use facial recognition apps. And there's actually been verified like cases of somebody being an almost identical match to someone else using the facial recognition.
That's so crazy.
And whether or not it's an actual doppelganger, like, I don't know, is it a spirit, or is it just like genetics are wonky and every once in a while somebody's going to look a lot like you?
Right.
Which I get that all the time. And sometimes I'm like, do I have a doppelganger? Because somebody's like, I swear I've met somebody who looks just like you. Aren't you this person? Are you a sister? I'm like, no.
Not that I knew of.
I don't want to meet them, because if they're my evil twin, keep them away.
Right. What if you're the evil twin?
I probably am. I'm probably a bad omen.
No, you're not.
No, I am.
No, you're not.
Thanks. So, there's an 1848 book by the title of The Night Side of Nature that you might have heard of, but that's where kind of doppelganger became more popularized. Okay. It's a book by Catherine Crowe, and, it basically states the same thing about doppelgangers. It's just where it kind of entered more into popular society versus just like, oh yeah, it's just thing. Just weird German thing.
Right. This, kind of out there. Like,
now it's more accepted. But I kind of want to look up The Night Side of Nature and find that book, because it's literally, it's a paranormal book written in 1840. I know. It's cool. I want to use it for something.
Yeah.
But as I've kind of alluded to, there have been mimics throughout history. According to ancient Egyptian mythology, everyone possesses a ka, which is like their spirit double, and it's a tangible thing. Which I do know the Egyptians had lots of ways that they tried to process and understand, like, afterlife and the underworld, and the spirit had a lot of elements to it. But it is interesting that even going all the way back then, that there was an idea of having a spirit double. And, like,
right.
why did that continuously exist?
And in different cultures, like, all over the world. So, like, to me, I find that compelling, too, especially back then. These cultures were not talking to each other.
Right, and I didn't look this up as much, but there is reference, like, there's a story, like, a different telling of the Helen story of the Helen of Troy, that a double of Helen was used to mislead Paris at some point. And, like, there are stories of doubles happening to the point where it's always an evil double, too. Like, they always lead to something bad happening. Like, why is that? Right. So, there's more cultural versions of this that I will not be able to pronounce, but I'm going to bring them up because it's interesting. In Norse mythology, there is a spirit double known as the Vardogur. Sure. Yeah, it's wrong. I'm sorry. I know it's wrong. And this is a spirit double that actually acts before the actual person. So they go ahead of them and they do something before them. And it's almost like in the story of Helen, where she goes before Helen and misleads Paris. And it's kind of like, it's like there's a copy that's used to do evil deeds. And then in Finnish mythology, there is a similar first comer is kind of what the word translates to, and there is absolutely no way I can pronounce it, but just know it exists.
It's out the Google.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop trying because it's embarrassing. Muslim cultures also have this kind of idea, and it's probably not pronounced the way it looks, but essentially it looks like Karen or Quarren. I'm not sure, I'm probably saying it wrong, but it's again a spirit double, and it's a tangible spirit double, so it's living, so it's more like the doppelganger. And this can either be a good or a bad entity. They have children that parallel the children of their double, and they can, in some instances, they're believed to be something that will try to attempt to lead their original into committing misdeeds. So they're almost like the devilish counterpart of their original. It's not always the case, but that does seem to be the thing that's more expounded upon, is that it can be evil. So that's kind of the accepted, what you could say, doppelganger, mimic type thing. I did go into a little bit researching skinwalkers, just because they're similar. They're not the same, and I think a lot of people have heard of skinwalkers as a very predominant, like, Native American mythology. They are actually more, well, they're only prevalent in Western tribes, specifically the Navajo. And the interesting thing is, which makes sense based on how, Native American culture has been so erased over time thanks to, us.
Yeah.
So they don't actually like to share the stories that much because, a lot of these cultures preserve their stories orally. Mm-hmm. So you kind of keep it within your culture. So what we know about skinwalkers might not be 100% mythological. I can't talk.
Well, it's a big word.
Mythologically accurate. Jesus. My tongue is very tied. But the story we know is that a skinwalker is created when a magic user, you could say, in the tribe turns to the witchery way, which is like the dark side of magic. Mm. And usually you do that by killing somebody close to you or by committing another really dark crime. And a lot of it was like necrophilia and things like that. I imagine you could do all of the above, but usually they're men, which checks out. But, they turn to the witchery way, and then they are capable of shapeshifting. Usually, a skinwalker is said to shapeshift into like an animal form. The word itself, the original word, obviously it's not skinwalker, but the original native term means that by means of it, it goes on all fours. So typically it's an animal form, but there are stories of them shapeshifting into other people. And it would be people that they saw, I think. It would be the idea, like you see something and you copy it. Yeah. And you take its skin, kind of. But that being said, like I mentioned, who knows how accurate the myths are actually. It's just kind of what we've heard and what we've been allowed to hear. Right. But I do think it's similar enough. And the fact that all of the things we're investigating are American-based, North American-based stories. And there's so many tales of mimics. Right. It's interesting to note because all of the other stories aren't from North America. They're from Europe or, they're just elsewhere. So this is an American-based tale. Yep. Maybe there is something to it. Maybe it's more of some other creature more prevalent in North America. I don't know.
But also kind of related to that, though, Missouri was very heavily, Germans came to Missouri a lot. Yeah, so and settled. And so, I don't know, maybe they brought over the doppelganger ideas.
Oh, for sure. And I don't necessarily know, I don't know if I believe that spiritual entities are tied so much to the location. I would sooner believe that it's all the same thing. It's just how whoever is there interpreted them. Sure. So, it's the same thing. Like, you look at dragons, and you see dragons all over culture, and, they're drawn differently, but it's kind of the same thing, and there's no reason for them to have existed throughout nature. So maybe it's like, oh, everybody saw weird dinosaur fossils and made up their own stories of dragons everywhere and things like that. So it just translates over location. Mm-hmm. That's the main, obviously there would be way more to go into with doppelgangers, but we're not going to spend forever on that. I did have a theory, though, when we were investigating MSP, and obviously this is just me pulling shit out of my ass. Not literally, that's gross. I'm sorry.
Well, that's not where I thought you were going with that comment.
Anyways, I shouldn't be allowed to free speak sometimes.
Well, I shouldn't either.
This is almost worse than talking drunk. So, Another main story with MSP is that there are shadow people. That's a very common thing, and I honestly think it has a lot to do with you're in the frickin' dark. There's shadows everywhere, and if you stare at the dark too long...
so many doors and windows and stuff, too, at, like, prisons.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with Waverly. Wow.
Waverly.
With Waverly, so it's their shadows. But a long time ago, as in like a year ago, we talked about shadow people, and one of the theories about shadow people is they're sort of like a certain step in the ghost process. Like, it's at the point where this entity has lost their sense of self, and they've forgotten what they used to look like, what they used to sound like, and nobody else really remembers either, so their identity is kind of shifted to just this mass. And then I was wondering, and I think I was just wondering out loud, or maybe I read it somewhere and I just thought it was my idea, but like, what if shadow people are at this point, but they're getting familiar with these people living in the house or these people that are giving tours in the prison, and they copy them. Like, I don't know what I look like or what I sound like. I want to interact with these people. This is the frame of basis I have, so I'm going to copy it. And I don't know, that seems plausible. Like,
I think it's a very fascinating theory and definitely plausible. And then it makes it not, because I think a lot of times we think of mimics or doppelgangers as like an evil thing,
right.
But maybe if they have lost their own sense of self, so they're copying someone they see frequently, that's more innocent.
Right,
you know?
and like, it doesn't have to be a bad thing. Like, yes, it's very easy to think that something that's going to copy someone is trying to mislead you.
Right.
Which is very possible. Like, there's just so many things. Like, that's, I think, one of the interesting things about doing paranormal research is that you have no idea what it is. Like, there's no set anything.
No.
I mean, I hate math because everything's set, but I love ghosts because it's fuck knows.
Yeah.
But
and I don't know if we'll ever be at a point in time where we can definitively prove things. But.
Yeah. But one reason I like that we're going to do some of this theory research again is it's very, I guess, almost reassuring to know how many people have talked about these sorts of things over time.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting to see that it's just a very human thing to have an interest in the paranormal. And it's not like, oh, you guys are just dumb and weird. Like, no, actually, this is historically.
Goes back thousands of years.
Yeah. And whether it's just a weird quirk of humanity to, like, try to explain weird things they hear and see, I feel more assured that there probably is something happening. Because literally people have seen this for so long. So,
yeah.
I guess we can go into what we heard and did not see, but heard. MSP.
Yeah, I know. I was a little bummed that I did not see a shadow person.
Yeah.
But also I'm really afraid for that to happen. It's probably going to happen someday if we just keep investigating, but...
You know, the interesting thing is, though, like, I know I always bring it up, but I did see a shadow person, and it was just at home, so I don't think you have to go to any of these crazy places. Which is, like...
True.
God, and I was thinking of... it's... When I was researching the mimics and doppelgangers, like... Those aren't related to a place. Those are personal things. Like, it's not...
That's true.
If we go with the theory that they're associated with the person and not, like, a shadow person copying an identity, like, you don't have to go to a quote-unquote haunted place to see one of those things. Like, it's just related to you. Mm-hmm. So, like, what if whatever mimic was copying Mike wasn't a mimic related to MSP? It was... following him
from something else.
Yeah, and the shadow person I saw was at my house. So
right.
It's like maybe more hauntings than we realize are related to a person versus a place. Because even like the poltergeist is supposed to be brought on by negative energy from a person. Right. Hauntings or like demonic entities are more latched onto a person than a place. So maybe, I don't know. It's an interesting concept. I think MSP itself is definitely haunted, but maybe some of it is stuff that we bring in that we're not aware of.
Right. But we also had, like, thinking of that, though, we had an interesting theory, too. Like, while we were at MSP, it almost felt, like, purposefully quiet. Mm-hmm. And we were trying to decide, is that the ghosts, like, feeling us out? And, like, they weren't...
said that before, too.
Or is it... We also had talked about, like, is MSP maybe not quite as haunted as people claim it is because these people were so bad that maybe they actually don't have regrets and they have moved on.
It's very possible. Like, I can't see very many of them having regrets. And, like, I mean, if hell or the underworld exists in the context that a lot of people think it does, then...
That's where
that's where they would be for sure. So they don't have anything to do on Earth anymore.
Yeah, they haven't left any of their soul or whatever behind because they did finish their business. I don't know. But going back to it did feel, it was just kind of eerily quiet at times. Like you just like.
But you didn't feel alone.
Right. Like we felt like we were being watched or assessed or something. And maybe it's because we were two women in a pretty much male prison.
Yeah.
Which we thought that might elicit more activity. And maybe it will if we go back.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But we've said that before. Like, I feel like that's what we said about the Sally house the first couple of times we went. Where, like, we didn't feel alone, but we didn't hear anything. But we felt like it was, I think what the word we used was, like, quietly assessing. It was like it was watching us and trying to get a feel for us almost.
Yep.
Which is interesting if it's a mimic type spirit, because it's not going to really do much if it's trying to replicate you. Like,
That's true, too.
Like, it doesn't know you yet, so it can't.
Yep.
I don't know. It wasn't. I wouldn't by any means say I didn't think it was haunted. It was just a different type almost. It was weird.
Right. That's what I'm saying too. It's like there's definitely way too many stories. It's not that it's not haunted. It may be just different level. Well, and Mike had said that at one point. Like sometimes, especially in housing unit 1, it's either all or nothing.
Right.
And so maybe, I mean that too. You know.
And I think there's
Is that
something
part of
to say, like, a lot of the people that go into MSP now, I'm not saying we're, like, professionals, but we're closer to professionals than a lot of people that go in. And I would say that a lot of the groups that aren't regular ghost hunters that we've been out with make ghosts out of literally everything. So, like...
And we did hear taps and different stuff, and it's like, I think we're to the point where it's like, unless it's a deliberate noise, it's like,
we rule more out than we used to.
Buildings make noises.
Yeah, and some of the stuff that we thought was like singing or knocking, we were like, that's probably a pigeon. Because there are pigeons in there, and there were a couple times that we were pretty confident it was a pigeon. But there are other noises that were like, that's too specific, that's too human-like to rule out as a bird. So,
right.
but we were getting better at that, and especially with like shadow people. If you stare at the dark long enough, it moves a little bit. And I think it's easier to decide what's just a doorway or a weird piece of paint versus what's a humanoid shape.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
And I think just some people don't necessarily do that because they expect ghost hunting to be like this fast-paced, like shit's happening left and right kind of thing. So they have to see things, whereas we know mostly it's just a lot of quiet. Mm-hmm. And me yelling at a tripod.
Yes, which we'll have to post like on Instagram or something. So we started in housing unit 1, which was the former like women's prison and then AG-SAG most recently. And we actually we kind of left there because it had a lot of pigeons, and we realized that was affecting our investigating. So we kind of left that building, and we went to housing unit 3 next, which I'm going to skip that because pretty much that's where all of our evidence came from. We then went to the gas chamber, and that was very creepy. And we got some weird noises there, but we're not going to include them because at one point we heard like music, and it was 3 a.m. when we were in the gas chamber on a Monday night.
We all heard it too. It was bizarre.
It was very bizarre, but we can't rule out that wasn't just because humans, real alive people.
Well, hadn't we heard, because it didn't sound... Like, wasn't it confirmed that sound kind of filters weird through the gas chamber?
Yes. I mean, it's like this old metal, like, little spaceship-looking thing. It's kind of weird.
I don't feel like the music was actually happening outside, but I thought we'd been like, maybe it was a weird way that it was picking up the sound of the owl outside. And it was getting kind of
well, and Mike thought, too, like, because we actually opened the door at one point, because when we had the door closed, it was, like, maybe causing, like, air pressure, and it was, like, kind of making a whistling kind of noise, so we opened the door.
Yeah, but all three of us did hear what sounded like kind of distant, warped music, which was weird. It was a compelling thing. Like, it was creepy, but we were also in a gas chamber, and everything's going to seem really creepy there.
Yeah.
And then there were the eyes watching us from the distance that were definitely animals, but it was still freaking creepy.
It was so creepy. I mean, and also it's creepy because by this point it was 3 a.m. It was one of the last, second to last places we went, so.
And everything's, like, fenced in, and then there's so much of the prison that's like broken and decrepit, and you're like, this is where a zombie's gonna freaking amble out and come eat my face.
Right, especially where the gas chamber is. It's like there's a huge field, and that's where the factories used to be, because a lot of the prisoners worked in the factories, and so I mean, it's just
and then at one point we were like walking along the prison wall with just flashlights. it was literally straight out of like The Walking Dead.
It really did feel like that.
It was cool, but it was fucking scary. And I kept thinking I like saw figures because there's this huge field like just surrounding the prison. And I'd look out and I swore to God I saw a figure and I was like, there's a person there.
I mean, there might have been.
Eat me.
Or a bear.
I held my flashlight on it for a while and I was like, it's not moving. I don't think it's anything. I don't know. I'm like in a pose like I have a wand from like Harry Potter.
Ready.
I'm like, I'm ready.
So then the very last place we went was Housing Unit 4, which is the building that's the oldest left standing. I think built in 1868. And that one's just crazy because it looks like it was built in the 1800s.
Yeah. And they had like a tornado had ripped off the roof not that long ago, so I think they had different lighting before then, but the current lighting is like the string lighting along the edge of it, and it gave the entire place this like air of us being at a seance. It was so freaking creepy.
It also kind of looked like a wedding venue.
A little bit it did. I didn't think, because they had chairs all set up in the middle, which was like made it one of my favorite places because I was like,
oh my God, we can sit.
And I was like, I don't want to go anywhere. Ghost, you come to me.
Yeah, we were definitely, I mean, it was about 4 a.m. by the time we got there, so we were very tired. There was definitely places we could have sat throughout the night, but there was spiders, and I saw roaches a couple of times, and I was just like,
I didn't give a shit about the roaches, but
plus all the rust.
The rust made me, I must have died in a past life from tetanus, because I'm so scared of it, and I'm like, every time I touch rust, I'm like, my hand's gonna fall off. I couldn't exist in like an apocalyptic scenario, because I'd be like, I can't sit, what if the dust is toxic?
I wouldn't want to.
No, I'd just be like, well,
please take me, zombie.
Yeah, just let it go. Just let me join your forces of evil.
Yes. So anyways, yeah, so in this last place, we did Anestus down in the dungeon. Didn't really get... we just did a spirit box session, sorry. Didn't really get anything, but we were also very, very tired by this point, so I definitely like to go back and explore that place more, because... I think we investigated for about an hour and a half there, but we were just so wiped out.
I was definitely creeped out down there.
Oh yeah, it's eerie vibes, and that's where they get a lot of peepers, like shadow figures that are looking out from the cell, and there's also like you get cell doors slamming, and just a lot of that.
I think what was really scary about the dungeon is it's a dead end, so you're just going down, and I remember getting like to the point where I was like, oh my God, which was a lot of places there. Like, obviously, you're going in one direction. You're going to have to turn around if you want to get out. And it was, this is moving back to 3D, but I remember I was, like, at the end of the group, and we were leaving the very bottom, like, I think O block there. Mm-hmm. And I was at the last person going up the stairs, and I just felt that, like, pure terror of, like, something is behind me.
Yeah.
I was, like, shining the flashlight behind me. I wasn't going to look, and I was like, surely it'll just dissipate whatever's there. But I was convinced that there was something back there, and I was like,
there might have been.
I didn't feel it anywhere else, but...
And everywhere you kind of have to walk single file in a lot of the places, because it's just tight. I mean... how prisons are, and I realized pretty much in every video Emily is in front of me, so I was too afraid to go first. I think there's one video where
too afraid to go first, too afraid to go last.
I know there was one video I think I was like, why am I first? And Emily's like, because you went first.
You walked in front of me. And then I think I was like, do you need me to go in front? And you were like, no, at first, and then somehow I ended up in front
of you. Yeah. Probably because I just stopped.
You're like, no. And then you stop moving. I'm like, okay.
I guess I'll go.
That happens.
So I guess I was more scared than I probably let on, because I was never in the front.
I think I'm getting some weird sense of bravado now. I don't know if it's real or if it's just... I don't know if it's... I think I just block out the reality, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna make stupid jokes. And I'm not scared. Yeah. Everything's fine.
It's fine.
It's like walking around like, oh, I'm just gonna read these magazines that they put in the cells. That's fine.
Yeah, you did do a lot of the reading, the material. Yeah. The material.
Anyways, I took us off track because I was just thinking about that feeling came to me.
Yes. So speaking of feelings, so then the place we investigated in kind of the middle of the night, so maybe around midnight to probably 2 a.m. We were in Housing Unit 3, and that's where death row is, and it's definitely the biggest one. It was Gin Pop, but death row was also there, and then these in 3D, these solitary punishment cells. They're not as bad as the dungeons. They had light. But yeah, that's just where we felt.
That's the place that I felt the most bad, I guess. Like, yeah, we went all the other places and they felt bad, but like, I feel like we've gotten good at recognizing when there are like the alarm bells in our heads, and like we had it at Beatty, you know, where we commented on something and it ended up being verified by evidence, and it was kind of the same thing here where like I could tell what building I felt the most often and what I felt the most creeped out by, and then our evidence backed it up. It's just like that seemed like it was the most active that night, and it was basically every part of it. It's where we got our stuff.
Yep.
So it was not and like we said, a lot of it we heard in person.
Yep.
Should we get into it now, I guess? Like,
yeah, we can. I mean, I guess we could talk about the one, because this was actually, it was in Housing Unit 3, but it was when we were walking in the cells, so we were probably on the second or third level.
And we were trying to do burst EVP sessions. Those didn't work very well, but I think we were at the point where we were trying to get the ghost to tell us what cell to go into to kind of hang out, and obviously nothing did. So we picked this one. And this one in particular had, like, what was it, the all-seeing eye painted? And I went into it specifically, like, because a lot of the cells had, like, personalization. They let a lot of the inmates paint their cells to make it, I guess, homey. But this one was terrifying. It had the all-seeing eye painted very large in there. I think the ceiling was black in this one, too.
Yeah.
So we went in there specifically for that. And we were kind of talking back and forth about that. And we were talking about the eye, and then I remember I heard humming. And this was great because I was recording and Kayla was recording, and we were both doing video. So I had a video that I had pointing at the eye, and then I heard the humming. We heard the humming in the video. I stop, and I'm like, was that Mike? And then Kayla's recording me, catches me saying that, turning around, and obviously hers also caught the humming. And she's like, I don't know. And we verified that he wasn't there at the time.
Yeah, and he had gone to shut off the lights. Yeah. So he was very far. He was in Housing Unit 3, but he was very far away from us.
And the humming was he has a very deep voice. It was not that. I mean, it sounded more female to me, but it could have kind of been anything. It was kind of sing-songy, but it also could have been like a It's kind of hard to tell, but it was definitely there. And we saw Mike, asked if he'd been humming, and he was like, nope. He's like, I laughed at something earlier, but he wasn't near us at the time.
Yep.
So that was very interesting.
And
that was one of the first, not the last, but one of the first times we heard something in person that we then also recorded, and that doesn't happen a lot.
No.
And when you're in an empty building, like, it's a little bit more compelling.
Yes. And all three of us were very good about calling out stomach growls.
Yes.
Oh, I sighed. Or there's a car, there's a motorcycle. Like, all three of us were really good at calling out
and
noises.
I think Mike even more so than us, and we're pretty good at it. I think he's much faster to debunk stuff, too.
Yes. Well, he's there all the time. He knows the noises the building makes.
Right.
And the city noises.
Yeah, and there were a couple things that I feel like we debunked as, like, pigeon noises, but that one to me was not.
Yeah.
No.
Well, we'll let you hear it now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whoa, look at this.
Oh, whoa. The all-seeing eye.
Is that Mike? Did you hear that? No, I heard a humming. Somebody just hum? I have to ask him.
I forgot how scared I was.
Did you not hear it, or did you?
I don't think I heard it, because I think that's why when you ask, was that you? And I was like, what?
Yeah, and you looked pissed off at me half the time we were there, I swear to God.
I think it's my resting bee face. But I do look, when you pan to me, I look like freaked out.
You're like...
My eyes are kind of wide.
I almost feel like you were more scared there than I was, because you were...
I think I don't know, I think I was. I don't know.
Because, like, it's not usual that you're like, why am I going first? Because usually you're having to drag me places where it's just like... I don't know. It was kind of an interesting switch, I feel like. And I don't know
Yeah.
if it's just depends on how we're feeling that day, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe one of us is more in tune to the location than the other or something. But, like, it was interesting.
Yeah.
It definitely felt like whenever I feel like I go to a haunted house or something like that, I always end up having to be the person in front. And it's like, everybody pulls behind me. And I was like, it felt like that.
I did. I was just like, not. I was like, I don't even know if I was so much as forcing you, but I just wasn't moving, so you had to go first. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think I heard it in person, which is also interesting that you heard it.
But definitely both our recorders got it, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So
from there, we then investigated a while longer in those cells, but...
Yeah, because they were just fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite a more we just explored. We tried to do some burst EVP and such, and I think we brought the spirit box out a couple times, but I guess also to note with the spirit box is a lot of times when we're in a city, you still get a lot of noises through it from radio stations, and this night, it was just a lot of static. Like, every time we brought out the spirit box, it was hardly... There's just, I don't know.
Which is one thing, like, I know we've talked about this before. I didn't used to put much stock into spirit box, but now it's, like, one of my favorite ways to investigate. They're more compelling because you don't always get stuff. Sometimes places are completely quiet. You can tell, like, this is just radio jargon. But then sometimes you do get, like, really consistent answers that are fitting a certain theme, and it's weird. Like, you can follow the trail of a conversation, even though, like... Yeah, it's all just jointed and discombobulated, but, like, it's all in the same vein. Mm-hmm. And that's always very compelling.
Yep.
And again, this time, this might be jumping ahead, but we tried again our double spirit box that we've had, and Mike suggested it too, which I think it makes, it gives more credence to our theory that having two going at once amps up the activity, because I swear to God, every time we have two going, we hear shit outside of the box. Like, and it's either the person under who's convinced they're hearing something, or it's whoever is asking questions who's like, shit was happening outside. Like, I feel like it's a legit seance at that point.
Oh yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah. So we went down to 3D, which is the punishment solitary.
We went into cells.
We did well.
This is before. This is.
Actually, I didn't. I was weird. I didn't go into very many cells, but we did the double Estes, and Emily and Mike went under, and I answered the questions. So Emily and Mike are on opposite ends of the hall, the cell block, and you both go in and out. Sometimes you're in the hallway, and then sometimes they go into cells, and I was kind of in the middle of them. And I had a recorder going.
It was dark as shit.
It was super dark. Yeah, we went lights out.
Terrifying.
And yeah, this is where Emily, I think she has the noise canceling headphones on. She didn't realize how loud she was really stomping her feet.
Yeah, my legs and my feet were hurting really bad because like, I'm going to wear my Vans so I can be cute. But I was in pain and I was farting every time I stepped.
Yeah.
Not really, but my feet were farting. But yeah, I was stomping like a goddamn horse. And I was thrashing the tripod because it wasn't working. Like, I should record myself and just... I had no idea I was being that loud. And I was sighing so loudly. It was ridiculous. I was so embarrassed at myself.
It was so funny. And so we had a couple of interesting moments happen in the 30 minutes that we were doing this double Estes session. So we're going to kind of play a few of those clips. So we'll probably play a clip and then chat about it, play another clip. I think that's how we'll do this. So I think it's better to just listen and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
At least this first one. You can also talk through mic down here.
Behind you.
Trapped?
Are you trapped in a cell? You just...
Wrong. Hello?
I'm still here.
How about...
You want me to get you something?
Right now.
What do you want? You want 6?
Warren?
What's your name?
His name?
Your name is Warren?
Go.
You want me to go get you cigs now?
Colonel?
Were you a colonel? Sir, colonel?
Please.
You want me to go get you some cigs right now? Thank you for saying please. I'll have to go get some in a little bit. Can you tell me your name? My name is Kayla. Can you say my name back to me?
Missouri?
Are you from Missouri?
Look at me.
Lear?
Mike just said, look at me, when I was looking at Emily, which is interesting timing.
Look at me. It sounds extra scary with him
I
saying.
know, right? And he said it back in like the way it like it was very assertive.
Yeah, and you're like uncomfortable, like,
So yeah, that part was compelling because I was talking to you at that moment because you had said like Missouri and also I had the recorder in front. It was on a ledge more by Emily, so that's why she's a lot louder than Mike. I probably should have moved it more towards the middle in retrospect, but
you had no idea I would be doing all those things.
all the stomping sounds are not paranormal.
My
But
bad.
that whole like
Pretend I was possessed.
it was just kind of interesting that one because like it starts with saying like behind you, and like at that time I think we were all like the cells were behind us. We were like we had just started.
Yeah, we were like all in a row, essentially, like very spaced apart. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and then trapped, which is kind of
Yeah, listening back, it was actually more compelling than I remembered.
Yeah, and then Mike's whole, it definitely felt like I was having a little bit of a conversation because I was like, do you want me to get you something? And he says, right now. And then I say, do you want cigs? And he says, go. And then I kind of am talking to you, and then he says, please, like, hey.
Yeah, and then
don't
look at
forget
me.
Like, look at me. Yeah.
That's
like,
spooky.
That's just spooky.
And I could totally picture like somebody in a cell, like trying to get your attention. Just like, look at me. Mm-hmm. Ashley, look at me.
So yeah, that was compelling. And then I guess in this next clip, it's I left it all as one clip, but there's kind of two factors to it. One, I don't know if we should just play it but maybe I'll call it out and we can always cut this. But Mike was saying a lot of numbers. And I did ask, like, are you saying your inmate number? Or, like, what are these numbers? And he just kept saying numbers. And then Emily, like, says a number. And I'm like, what the fuck is all these numbers? It was weird. And then we capture some voices not from some whispering. So that's kind of towards the end of this clip. So the beginning is the numbers. Towards the end is the whispers. So it is...
Which is interesting because it's like it started after we'd had the two spirit boxes going for a while.
Yeah, this is 15 minutes in.
Which again checks out to like we're feeding things the energy, which I want to do double every place we go from now on.
Yeah, we have to get a second spirit box.
I know. We have to get more people.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess we could just have it going and...
No one's here, ghost. You gotta do your own Estes.
What if, like, the headphones just float up onto this invisible head?
Right.
Best evidence ever.
Yeah. All right, here's this next clip.
Sounds like 42.
10.
Why are we saying so many numbers? Are you just being funny with me?
I swear I keep hearing numbers that all sound like 8.
Dark.
Can you not see?
7.
Are you just being silly down here just saying all these numbers?
And your...
In my what?
8, 6.
Go down.
Go down.
I ain't going down.
Yes.
You want me to leave? Do you want me to leave?
You're dead.
So yeah, it was just kind of interesting. It's like we're saying all those numbers, then there's the whisper, and then there's kind of like that compelling little bit where it's like, you say you're, what'd you say?
It said dark. Go
Dark,
down.
Go down, and I said I ain't going down. And then, do you want me to leave?
It was like inside you, dark. Go down. You're dead.
Yeah,
It was weird.
it was weird.
Yeah.
And that's like, yeah, the whisper is like sandwiched between those kind of moments.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if we can find out what the whispers are saying.
Right. Yeah, I think we've can't quite make it out, but
It's
maybe
definitely
if
like-
you guys can.
Yeah, because you can definitely tell it's whispering. You can definitely tell it's not us. It's not me fucking stomping.
Yeah. So yeah, all that, I mean, because not just you, Mike too, like we were all like, in retrospect, we should have had chairs or something because we were just moving in and out of the cells, and so that's what that shuffling or the stomping is. But so that's what's, but I actually find that compelling with the whispers because we're making all this noise, and yet these noises that are definitely,
Yeah.
because you can hear what because someone might say, oh, that whisper, maybe that's just what your footsteps sounds like. It's like, nope, because you can hear our footsteps.
Those are very clear.
Yeah, so, and that wasn't the only whisper we got. So this third clip I'm going to play, it also had a compelling grouping of words that, especially for a men's prison.
Especially knowing what we were close to as well.
Yep. So here we go.
You?
Are you
Touch?
Are you saying something significant? Otherwise, we're going to have to leave.
Or?
Did you just call me a whore? That's not what.
Right. Or rape.
Oh. Is that what you got in here for? What'd you say that for?
No? It's like a woman's voice.
Idiot.
It's almost like one of the ghosts was like, you idiot, stop saying things.
Right, like, yeah, because, yeah, it's like you say, you touch whore, rape, and then there's this almost, it sounds like there's a little voice, like a, yep, or, and then there's whispering, and then Mike said, or you say, no.
Yeah, and I said it was a woman's voice.
And then Mike says, idiot. So it's like, is he saying, like, shut up, like, stop talking.
Which is kind of what happened at Hall of Waters when they had the two spirit boxes. It seemed like we were getting things talking to each other through the people on the box. Yeah. And I don't know. It's almost like with how we're getting things pieced together, which I know is a spirit box, but it almost gives me the sense of, like, multiple people talking at once, especially with us getting the actual whispering. Mm-hmm. It's almost like everything in the cell block was just throwing stuff at us. Yeah. Which is scary.
Right. So, yeah, and this was 18 minutes in. So, I mean, it's
been going a substantial
It's going a
amount of
while. I don't know if we should include this one. It's just me being sassy.
No,
it's nothing...
Include it.
Nothing supernatural, but here we go.
Supernatural sass.
6. You're back to saying numbers. Okay, great. What does 6 mean? Are you going to say one more 6?
Probably would have if you hadn't said anything. Now the ghost is just pouting.
Right.
Like, I was trying to scare you.
And I was like, I'm fucking over it. Because this was actually towards the end of our 30 minutes. So I was tired.
Like, you can't scare me with demonic bullshit. A demon tried to pick me up in Atchison, Kansas.
Right, exactly.
I ain't scared of you.
I ain't scared of no demon.
Like, yeah, right. You're not a demon. You're just a shitty human ghost. Please.
Right. Ugh.
As F.
So that was 3D. Before we depart, any more words?
I don't think so, because that's... Well, actually, I mean, I guess if we're going chronologically, do you want to talk about the recorder we left in there?
Oh, shit. Yes.
Yeah, so after...
I forget that was in there. Yes,
Yeah.
we definitely need to talk about that.
So after... Now I'm going to have to get a second to pull this. I'm going to pause
Well-
real quick. Okay. So we did leave the cell block after... in 3D after we did the Estes method, but I left my recorder in there, and it didn't get any voices or anything like that, but it did get a lot of movement, and this happened after we were well out of the area, because like we left it for I think like close to 2 hours.
Yeah, that was like a 2.5 hour recording.
Yeah.
Super fun to listen to.
Yeah. So initially what we got, and it was compelling, I don't know if we'll play it, but we got like consistent tapping. And it almost sounded like it was very close to the recorder. It was like a...
Thump, thump.
Yeah, and it was like... When I say consistent, it like wasn't on any sort of pattern that we could be like, okay, this must be something because it's happening exactly in this time. It was like... It just happened a lot.
Sporadically?
Sporadically, yeah. But it all kind of culminated in a very, very loud bang that sounded very much like a cell door slamming.
Yeah.
Which obviously we can't verify because we weren't taping anything. There was no video evidence, but we did get the audio, and it's compelling because, like Kayla said,
literally no live person was down there. These doors are very heavy, so they're not gonna swing shut.
yeah, and like Kayla said, it was a 2.5 hour recording, so we only got that loud bang one time. Something down there made a noise, and for that to have been probably the most active place we encountered there, and the place where I remember being physically very scared when we were leaving, when we left, as I left my recorder there. So I do feel like there was something there, and I'm pretty convinced that bang was paranormal. But
Yes, because there's no animals in the buildings aside from pigeons, but that was not a pigeon.
I don't think pigeons are slamming doors.
No, but there's no critters in the building, so
Except spiders. But,
just spiders and roaches and pigeons.
the whole circle of life.
Yes.
There's probably rats, but...
Right, but also a rat is not... I don't know. I feel like we might have seen... there could be, but a rat is also not slamming the door.
No, unless it's got ROUSs.
Yeah.
Yeah, super rat.
Super rat.
But that kind of concludes that area.
So that is 3D. So definitely when we go back to MSP, we are going to spend time there because it was active for us.
What we really should do is get brave to the point of one of us stays there alone.
We were supposed to do that, and we did not. Before we got there, we had talked about us each going solo places, which I guess where we're headed, we were sort of solo in cells.
Yeah, we did a little bit more.
We were in the same cell block, so...
Yeah, and we did a little bit more free roaming and separation. I think we would have done it if we had more time.
That's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
We just didn't have time.
Yeah, because I feel like whenever we go back, I think we'll be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, we won't need to do two, because, which we needed, but, probably the first 2 hours Mike gave us a tour of the entire place, and then we went back and investigated. So we wouldn't need to spend those 2 hours touring.
Right, and the tour was definitely helpful.
Oh, yeah, we needed it for the context and stuff.
But yeah, it's like the same thing as Waverly. We did the tour and it felt necessary, but next time we don't want to spend our time doing that. We want to just go.
Just immediately start investigating. Yeah. So from there we then went, which is on the other side of Hall Housing Unit 3, I don't know, whatever it's called.
Yeah, that's just so huge. It's hard to
and it's
remember.
and Mike probably is listening and being like, "Oh my god, I told you." But
yeah, I've told you twice now.
But I feel like it had names. I think they called them B and C at one point, and A and B. So the problem is a lot of these had, and then I forget what's the most recent name.
It was a continuation of the prison.
Yes, but Housing Units 3, I'm just gonna say, is what that building was. So we on the opposite side from where 3D is I think is Death Row.
Yes, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, because it's it was a weird, really confusing setup, because when you walk in, there's a
middle section?
Like a middle prison, so there's prison bars everywhere, and it's all sectioned out, and then one way leads down to 3D and whatever, and the other side leads to Death Row. So basically it's the shittiest of the shitty.
Yeah. Here.
And that's why it was so active, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we finally were able to meander our way across the other side of the very confusing prison maze is when we found death row, and that's where we got more compelling evidence.
So this time we did a double Estes again in death row, but Emily and I were under.
Which we've never done.
We've never been able to do, or we just never have done. And I don't really like to go under. You just feel so vulnerable.
See, I love going under because I hate asking questions.
Yeah, and so I don't do it very often, so it was good. And then Mike was asking the questions. It was also great because he knows, like, the names of prisoners, and so I will say the Estes session wasn't we didn't actually do it for very long, and I'll explain why. It wasn't super compelling in the conversation, but we actually stopped because Mike was convinced he was hearing voices and footsteps. So he actually stopped and he went out to make sure there was no one on the property.
Like actual people.
And I'm pretty sure my recorder picked up some, like, movement and voices that let's go ahead and play it.
Yeah.
Is your name Baker?
Noise.
Is your name Zypo?
Voice. Yeah, so it's a little faint. So listening with headphones probably helps, but it's after. So I think I say noise, either noise or I don't know if I meant to say noise, like, but.
I said noise. You didn't say noise.
Noise, and then you kind of hear these, like, steps and what maybe could be voices, and then I say voice, which is also so, like, it's compelling the two words I say, and there does sound like there's a step or something after I say voice.
Yeah. There's definitely something happening.
Yeah,
and it's interesting.
And you can hear me shuffle too. I had the recorder in the cell with me, so I am loud, but. Yeah, the movement was me shuffling. But.
And I do remember when we came out, Mike was like, it wasn't just like, man, I thought I heard something. It was like, no, I heard something. I heard people talking. I heard footsteps, like, all around me, essentially. Mm-hmm. Like, he was, I think, as spooked as I could imagine him getting. But
agreed.
I do remember when I did, like, I didn't really get anything super compelling during my Estes session there either. But, like, I remember thinking that I was hearing a very specific voice, like, a couple times, like, not what you normally hear coming through. It's just, like, very well-defined voice. And I remember there was one point where he went, like, and I remember it, like, it was just so clear. It's just, like, I just remember that being, like, I thought I heard this very similar man's voice a couple times, and it wasn't, like, I could just, like, picture the person almost. That doesn't happen often either.
No.
So it was interesting, and that was very sassy.
Yeah, I wrote that in my notes, like, the way M says,
Yeah, and because I'd heard that person say something else too, and I was just remember the standing out a lot. It was just interesting. It wasn't necessarily scary. It's just like, oh wow, that was somebody.
Yeah. Sometimes the way the voices come through, the tone and stuff is just.
And you don't usually get tone with those snippets coming through like that. When you do, it stands out.
Exactly.
It was relatively quiet, but I do think we got some pretty solid, compelling stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I definitely want to go back and, like. It was an interesting experience. I think things were ramping up, but I do remember when we were leaving the old sections when the fog had been rolling in.
Oh, yes. We'll have to share, like, a video of that, because it was crazy.
Yeah, it was, like, rolling in from off the river, and you could just see this huge body of fog just slowly approaching the prison, and just being in an old prison at night and just seeing this terrifying fog coming at you It was very cinematic.
Yes, it was also a, like, blood moon that night, too.
It was. Everything was
crazy.
Cool. We were, like, hoping that meant we were, like, gonna...
And it had stormed the night before, I think, and into that early morning.
So we were confident, like, something crazy was gonna happen. We did get stuff, so, I mean, stuff happened. It just wasn't... Yeah. I think we're still waiting for that investigation that just has...
Scares us.
Yeah, like, has unquestionable, we see this in person and we're terrified. But I don't even know if we would... I feel like after a while, we'd dull the evidence in our minds, because I feel like that's what we always do. We have this strong evidence, and we're like, this happened to me, but I'm sure we can find a way to explain it.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it was a very, very cool investigation. I think we got some really interesting evidence, and I want to go back.
Yes, I want to go back and like it's just such a cool place to explore. So definitely like do the history tours. They do public ghost hunts.
Yeah. Request Michael Lear.
Yes. Request Michael Lear. He is awesome. He's got a great voice to listen to too.
Yeah.
Radio voice.
Yep. Yeah. Go find him. Go find his podcast too. Show Me Murder.
Yes. Yeah, it's just I can't wait to go back and zone in on some areas and get my workout in, because I think didn't we look like we got like 15,000 steps or something crazy?
I have a watch so it like tracks my steps, and I remember like that for that overnight, like it spiked so high, just like you walked 1,000,000 steps more than your average. I'm like, I feel it. I was sore for I was limping. It was so sad.
Which we also, earlier that day, which is fun to note on, Mike took us to a couple cemeteries that kind of have some correlation to the prison. So that also contributed to our steps, and
I totally forgot to mention that, which I guess what we talked about more previously in our first episode.
Yeah, so we went to Longview Cemetery first, and that's where a lot of prisoners, they're in marked and unmarked graves there. So that's, they're kind of in like the back corner of the prison, so that's...
We tried to show disrespect to some of the graves.
Yep.
There's some not so great people buried there.
Yeah.
Like one thing, like, what's his name? Charles
Hatcher.
Charles Hatcher. He is buried there. He has an unmarked grave now, but like his grave is so near to a daycare, and like knowing that Charles Hatcher, who killed kids, his grave was around, like, just knowing it was there and just hearing kids in the distance, it was just, like, so unsettling. Which, like, obviously, I'm sure that's happened plenty of times where people have murdered kids or buried where kids are by, but, like, it's just, it was a weird parallel, and it was...
Agreed.
Yeah, and I remember kind of tying back to Hatcher, Mike said he'd been listening to that episode when he was walking around Missouri State Penitentiary, and he, like, was walking through or by the area where Hatcher had killed a fellow inmate right when we brought it up in the podcast.
Yep.
And it's just like one of those weird things of like, is that a coincidence, or like, is there something to that? And it's just kind of one of those things that's just so weird. And
yeah, because we didn't necessarily say that that's what that... So that episode was about Felix's grave. So Mike, when he's listening, he doesn't necessarily know we're going to then start talking about Charles Hatcher in that episode.
That's true.
So,
yeah.
But...
Yeah, because I did my follow-up episode on him some other time, but...
Yeah, it was crazy. And then we also went, after there, we went to Woodland Old City Cemetery. And that one, there's some wardens that are buried there, but that's just a very old cemetery for Jefferson City.
I got a tick.
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, she was wandering closer to the woods. I stopped wandering around, but didn't want to mess up my shoes.
And she'd broken her toe.
Oh, yeah, my toe is still bothering me. I broke it the day we did Beatty.
Oh, yeah, we've been joking that we're the old lady ghost hunters, because, like, a month or so before she broke her toe, I fell down the stairs.
That's right, and twisted your ankle.
And my ankle's still kind of messed up. Like, every once in a while, if I move wrong, I limp, and when I get up after I'm standing, I limp, so we're just both fucked up now.
We are, yeah.
But, you know, we made it through, and then it's probably while I was stomping like a horse.
Right. That's okay. We'll figure out footwear for investigations.
Figure out footwear and walking someday.
Yes, someday. So
not in our 30s.
So yeah, we were so excited to get the opportunity to explore Missouri State Penitentiary by ourselves. Like, so freaking incredible.
Yeah. So
I
thank
hope
you.
we
Get more opportunities like that, because it was so fun.
It was.
Addicted.
Yeesh.
And I'm so happy we're back and recording a second episode.
And I think something we might be trying is, instead of trying to, like, because it's been 4 months, sorry, listeners, instead of trying to get all of our season 3 episodes done and then releasing, I think we're going to try, like, small batch releases. So, like, we've got these 2 MSP ones, and then we've got our Beatty investigation. I think that might be next. It might not be. But I think we're going to just try to release these smaller groupings of episodes so that we can bring them to you all a little more consistently.
Yeah, and then that way we don't have to stress so much about, like, oh my god, what are we going to do for the next week's one? But then we can have more quality episodes, and then, there might be some weird little gaps in between, but it's not going to be 4 months.
Exactly. So, you know what? Growing pains. We're living and learning. So
yeah, God, we listened back to what episode was it? Our season finale of season 2. And
Our return to Sally House.
We were so proud of that episode, and we were like, why does the audio sound so bad? Like, I hate to bring attention to it, but also, like, it's just one of those things, like...
Yeah. Well, we're putting higher standards on ourselves.
We are.
So I hope this audio sounds better.
Yeah, we're trying some things, and we're gonna grow. Like, our eventual plan is to kind of set up a more stable studio, because, like, right now we're in my bedroom. Like, we can't soundproof it.
Right.
And we probably won't be able to soundproof too much in the near future, but we can improve things slowly.
Yes.
We've tried some things in this recording, and hopefully it'll be apparent.
Yes.
If not, just know we are aware and we are working on it.
But please stay with us.
Please stay. We are constantly improving. It's just every once in a while, technology decides to hate us, and by every once in a while, I mean every single time we record. So, you know.
But we're back. And the cat.
Yeah, the cat decided to scratch on the tree right there. She's back too. We're all back. Everybody's back.
Yay!
Woo! All right, so that's episode 2 of season 3.
Woohoo.
Woohoo! Return in however many weeks for more spooky spookies.
That's right.
And please, 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 if you would be so kind, leave us a review on iTunes.
Yeah.
We appreciate them very much, and we'll make sure to shout you out, whether it's on our socials or here, because we love every review we get.
Yes.
And they're also helpful. We did get a review, and it was kind of about our first episode, kind of talking about how we were a little all over the place initially, and we totally agree, and we love constructive criticism like that. Don't be mean, because we will cry, but like constructive criticism is good to hear, because it's nice to tell that people recognize that we did kind of work on it and we improved some things, and if there's anything else we can improve, let us know, because we want to do that.
Exactly. Leave us. Oh, we have a TikTok now?
We do. I just spastically decided to make it, and it's a baby TikTok, but we've got stuff.
Yeah.
Mostly what you'll see on our Instagram, but a few different things, and if you're more of a TikTok person, find us there.
Yep.
It's Remnants Paranormal, we're the purple guys.
That's right.
Purple little gravestones. You'll find, just follow the trail of idiotic posts and it's us.
Yes.
There'll be more to come soon.
Yay.
I just gave the mic a thumbs up. Whatever. Okay. I need to put some food in my tummy.
Yes. We will catch you on the flippity flip.
I did finger guns. Bye.